He was just trying to pick up his son from school. A normal day, a proud father behind the wheel. But before he could even park, flashing lights appeared in the mirror. A routine stop, they called it. Yet, within moments, it turned into humiliation in front of his child and half the neighborhood. Jabari had done nothing wrong, but that didn't matter. Not to the officer who saw only skin, not a father. What began as public shame would end in a courtroom, where the truth no one expected would finally be revealed. Jabari wasn't just a father. He was the kind every child dreams of. Early mornings, long hours, and never a complaint. He worked as a delivery supervisor at a shipping warehouse, a steady job that kept food on the table and dreams alive for his 8-year-old son, Malik. Every afternoon, no matter how exhausted he was, Jabari made sure to pick Malik up from school. That small moment, his son running toward him with a backpack bouncing, was the best part of his day. Life wasn't perfect, but it was stable. Jabari had grown up understanding the weight of being a black man in America, cautious, respectful, aware. He'd seen what could happen when someone looked at you and decided you didn't belong. That's why he always carried himself with quiet dignity, never giving anyone a reason to question who he was. The community knew him well, polite, reliable, always lending a hand. He had no enemies, no record, nothing that could make him a target. Yet deep down, Jabari knew something most people didn't like to admit. Sometimes, doing everything right still wasn't enough. That Friday afternoon, the sun was warm, the streets busy with families and laughter. Malik's school had just let out, and Jabari was running a few minutes late, weaving through traffic with the radio humming softly. His mind was on weekend plans, maybe a movie, maybe just burgers and basketball in the yard. But as he turned the corner near the school gates, his peaceful world collided with flashing blue lights. The siren wasn't for someone else. It was for him. And in that moment, Jabari's ordinary life began to unravel. Not because of what he did, but because of what they chose to see. The officer's car stopped abruptly behind Jabari's. The siren cut off, but the red and blue lights kept flashing across his windshield. Confused, Jabari rolled down his window and waited. His hands were still on the steering wheel, exactly where he'd been taught to keep them. Malik sat quietly in the back seat, eyes wide, clutching his backpack. A tall white officer approached, his steps heavy, his expression sharp with authority. "License and registration," he demanded. No greeting, no explanation. Jabari complied instantly, his movements calm but careful, slow enough not to be mistaken, fast enough not to be accused of hesitation. The officer glanced at the papers and then at Jabari. Once, twice, his face hardening with suspicion. "You driving this car?" he asked flatly. Jabari nodded. "It's registered in your name?" Another nod. "You mind stepping out for me?" Jabari hesitated. There was no reason for this. He hadn't been speeding, hadn't run a light, hadn't even parked wrong. But saying that would only make things worse. So he stepped out, the afternoon air suddenly feeling colder than before. The officer circled the car, peering inside, checking the trunk without consent. Malik watched from the back seat, fear replacing curiosity. Jabari's voice was low and respectful. "Officer, is there a problem?" The man smirked. "We got reports of a stolen vehicle matching this description." Jabari froze. His car, the same one he'd saved for years to buy, now a symbol of suspicion. He felt the heat rise in his chest but bit his tongue. He knew how quickly control could slip away. The crowd outside the school noticed the flashing lights. Parents began to whisper. Phones came out, recording. Malik's teacher stood at the gate, watching with disbelief. And then the officer pushed further. "You sure this is your kid back there?" That question hit harder than anything else. Jabari's composure cracked, his voice trembling but firm. "Yes, that's my son." The officer didn't respond. He pulled Jabari aside and handcuffed him, right there in front of his child. Malik began to cry. Jabari's heart sank, but he didn't resist. The officer's tone turned cold. "You're being detained for further questioning." The humiliation was complete. Neighbors watched as the man they respected was led to the patrol car like a criminal. Malik's small voice echoed through the crowd. "He didn't do anything." At the station, Jabari sat in silence, wrists sore, waiting for someone to realize the mistake. Hours passed. No apology, no explanation, just stares. But the truth came from an unexpected place. The school's security cameras had captured everything. The stop, the lack of reason, the officer's aggression. By evening, the video was online, spreading fast. The department tried to contain it, calling it a misunderstanding. But the community wasn't silent. They demanded accountability. Lawyers reached out. News crews showed up. What the officer thought was just another day on the job was now national attention. Jabari had been released. But the damage was done. His dignity stripped. His son traumatized. His name whispered through headlines. Still, beneath the pain, a fire grew. He wasn't going to let this end in silence. What happened to him had happened to too many others, and this time it would be heard. Not just in the streets, but in court. The courtroom was packed. Cameras lined the back wall, the air heavy with tension. Jabari sat at the plaintiff's table, dressed sharply, his composure steady. But inside, his heart pounded. This wasn't just about one man's humiliation anymore. It was about truth, about standing up to a system that had always looked the other way. Across the room sat the officer, calm, confident, surrounded by department lawyers. His smirk was the same one Jabari had seen that afternoon, the one that said, "You won't be believed." The judge called the court to order, and Jabari's attorney began to present the footage. The lights dimmed. On screen, the video played. The stop, the unnecessary search, the handcuffs, Malik crying out for his father. Every sound echoed through the courtroom like a wound reopening. The officer shifted in his seat, but his lawyers stayed stone-faced. When the video ended, silence filled the room. Jabari's attorney spoke clearly. This wasn't a routine stop. This was power used as a weapon. Against an innocent man, in front of his child. The defense tried to object, claiming procedure and protocol. But the evidence spoke louder. The judge's expression hardened. Reporters scribbled. The jury watched every second, their faces changing. Disbelief, anger, empathy. Then came the most painful moment. Malik's testimony. His small voice trembled as he recounted what he saw. His father standing still, hands raised, treated like a criminal. "He didn't do anything," the boy said softly. "He just wanted to take me home." Tears fell across the courtroom. Even the officer couldn't look up. For Jabari, that was the moment everything changed. Years of quiet endurance turned into strength. The truth was no longer his burden. It was undeniable. When the judge finally spoke, her words carried the weight of justice long denied. "This court has seen enough." The room went silent. Everyone knew something was about to shift forever. When the verdict was finally read, the air inside the courtroom felt different. Lighter, yet heavier all at once. The jury found the officer guilty of misconduct and racial profiling, a ruling that, for once, didn't hide behind excuses or misunderstandings. Jabari closed his eyes, a slow breath leaving his chest. He hadn't smiled, not yet, because while he had won in court, he knew the scars of that day would never fully fade. Outside, cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions, but Jabari wasn't thinking about headlines. He was thinking about Malik, about the look on his son's face when he saw his father in handcuffs. That image would stay with him forever. But now, so would another. His son watching his father stand tall and be heard. The story spread across the country. News anchors called it a turning point. Community leaders called it proof that truth still matters. For Jabari, it was a reminder. A single moment can change everything when you refuse to stay silent. He used the settlement money not for comfort, but for change. He started a small foundation, programs to educate young men and their children about their rights, about how to stay safe, and about how to speak up. "If I stay quiet," he said once in an interview, "then I'm part of the silence that nearly destroyed me." But behind every victory, there was a question that lingered, one that refused to fade. How many more fathers would have to go through what he did before the world truly saw the pattern? How many more children would have to learn the meaning of fear before they ever learned the meaning of justice? Jabari's story wasn't just about one arrest or one officer. It was about a system built to doubt, to humiliate, to silence, and a man who refused to let it win. Because sometimes the loudest protest doesn't come from the streets. It comes from standing your ground, in the very place where they tried to break you. Don't miss more powerful real-life stories. Hit subscribe now.